They are.
And so when you would get to different exhibits, because you're fascinated, there would be, people there who were willing to explain things to you. So I was just consuming so much information, and I had bags, and I was carrying bags, and I was buying things. And then I said, you've got to hit all of the long arm displays.
Yeah.
And
because
because
what's so cool about it is they've got so many of them there. And there's and living in New Orleans, like that one long arm at that one shop is like really, and they've sold it now. So that's not even there anymore. So like we really don't have opportunities to see stuff here. So, so you hit them. So you went to each of them?
I went to each of them, but I didn't rush it because I knew I would be there the next day. So I stood around, I asked questions, they demonstrated, they let me run the machines. I got contact information, I got pricing information, and each evening I would go back to my hotel room and spread out everything on the bed and see how much I could remember about each one of those machines. And on the final day that my husband dropped me off, he says, are you going to buy a machine? And I said, I'm looking. He says, well, you've been looking for 2 days now. You need to make a decision. And I said, well, I didn't think we were here to buy a machine. He says, well, if that's what you want, why would you leave without getting what you want?
That's a good husband.
Said, I don't know if I'm ready. So I went in and I felt like, there was a weight on my shoulders. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I had about 3 tickets written up that they told me, all you need to do is call and we will go ahead and process everything and get your machine.
Do you remember which companies you were looking at?
I looked at, she was up in Minnesota, I believe. It might have been AQS. I looked at the HQ, and I can't remember. It was the one with the original machine. Oh gosh, I can't remember him. But the HQ was high on my list, and I know what I liked, but I think I was settling for what I thought I could get.
Yeah.
So when I got in the car that evening, my husband says, okay, so what did you do? And I said, I didn't get one. And he says, okay, then that means you don't want one. I said, it doesn't mean I don't want one. It just means I'm not ready for one. And he says, well, good. You know what you're doing. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So we came on home, and the next year, we were headed up to through Vicksburg, Mississippi, and I knew that they had a Gamble dealer up there.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to see a Gamble, and they have it at this store. And I coached my husband before we got in there. We are just going in to look. We are not buying anything, and we're not letting anybody twist our arm into anything, because these people are like used car salesmen.
Because they're like they can be as expensive as a used car, right?
And they can be. And we got in and we talked about, we talked to them, and the dealers were they were so personable, and they showed us the machines. We stayed in that store and everything, and it just, come see this, let me show you this. And then they showed me the computerized machine.
Yeah.
So they were programming things in.
Yeah.
And then in came their banker, and the banker says, we can get you with one of those today.
Really?
And I said, I don't need you to give me a machine. And she says, why? I said, I can call my own bank and get one. and I turned around and dialed the number and dialed my bank, and we ordered a machine.
Wow. And what kind of machine did you end up getting? Did you end up getting a computerized one, or did you get?
I have the big one.
You do?
I have
Oh,
the
I'm
real.
so gonna come over to your house. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I've seen it once and I'm totally interested in that. That's amazing.
it is. It is something else of a machine, and it's not just a Gamble, but it's a Statler. And a Statler is the one with the computerized, all of the programs, and it is a 14-foot long machine.
Amazing.
So it takes any size quilt.
And so when people say to you, well, why would you need a computerized quilt? Why wouldn't you want to just quilt it yourself? How do you explain to them why the computerized gamble is so incredibly cool? Like that's the thing to have, right? Like
It is. It is. It, of course, you can have it any way you want with this machine. I can drop the belts and I can do free motion on my own. So I can work it manual or I can work it computerized. But the point of having it computerized is because there are so many patterns that are designed for this machine and for any computerized machine, actually, because the other machines do have that feature.
yeah.
But there are so many precise patterns that are designed for this machine that, for instance, if you have a baby that you want to give, you want to give a baby quilt and you want to stitch in little bunnies and chicks or something like that. Well, I can program it so that I can have it stitch your entire quilt out with those designs in the same fashion throughout the quilt. So I can make it more perfect for you.
Yeah. How long does it take to do, say, a baby quilt? If you've computerized it, you've programmed it, that takes some time getting it all on. How long does the process start to finish, do you think, for a baby quilt?
It actually depends on a quilter.
Yeah.
Now, of course, some stitch out patterns are much slower because you're going to get a lot more stitching in those, in that particular design.
Yeah.
Some designs repeat themselves. And that means that, say, if you're stitching out a leaf, you might stitch that leaf out and it may come back down and make the veins in the leaves. Whereas you may want a more simplified leaf where it just does the outline. Well, that outline leaf is going to be a much faster pattern. So so the technicality of it and the technical side, it really depends. It's hard to say. But of course, an edge-to-edge quilt is going to be a whole lot faster than a custom quilt.
Yeah. And then how do you price that? So when people come to you, when they're not the charity quilts, how do you price your work?
Well, I price my work based on custom, of course. It depends on the job itself.
Yeah.
If you want a border to be special and you've got one design in the border, and then actually some quilts you have to actually stitch out each and every block.
Wow.
So those quilts are going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And so the density that you're going to stitch out and the amount of man hours that you're going to actually put on standing up to that machine and actually redrawing, because what a lot of people don't realize when you're doing custom is that you are actually redrawing their blocks.
Wow.
That they stitch. So you stitch out the blocks and you might have, say, 16 triangles into one of your squares. Well, depending on the way you want that done, I may have to redraw every one of those triangles so that I can stitch a different pattern in each one.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
So it gets tedious, but of course, a lot of people, when they are going to the show, and they want a show quilt,
Yeah.
That's what they are looking for, and
They'll
you
pay for
make
it.
that decision. And of course, when you're going to do one of those quilts, you won't have another quilt on your machine for a week.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. So I know a lot of, I know several quilters, not in Louisiana though, but I know several quilters who own more than one Statler
Wow. That's crazy
because
because
they do
they
so
don't
much
want to.
custom work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and does the work that you do offset the cost of the, I mean, it wasn't what you expected when you bought it, but do you find that you're bringing that in enough work that it pays for the machine? Is that what most people do with that machine?
Most people do that with their machine, but I
Yeah.
don't do it with my machine. Um, but it does give me mad money to
Yeah.
my next quilt.
That's really great. I
You know,
love
it's
it.
really fun when you do someone else's work, you get
Yeah.
paid for it, and the next time you go to the quilt shop, you kind of say, "Well, give me 4 yards instead of
Right.
2."
That's really great. I love it. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's fun to have money and it's you've earned it. I mean, it's different. It's like quilt money, so it's different. It's different than, right?
Yes, yes, it's all quilt money, and
That's great.
that's the fun of it. And
I
and of
love it.
course, I see it also in my area, and for the people that I quilt for.
Uh-huh.
Um, it really is a service because I notice here, uh, most of the people who call me will even say, "Do whatever you want," and I ask them, "But don't you want something special on your quilt?" And they'll
They don't
say,
know.
"Well, just that little design." So most of them are accustomed to just having a stipple or
Yeah.
something,
Uh-huh.
and they are usually amazed when for instance, someone wanted, it had a wine quilt, and I put grape leaves and grapes all on the, throughout the
That's
quilt,
great.
and she was like, "Oh, I got to make another one now." I said, "Well, by all means, you know."
I like that.
So and to me, it's really good when you can amaze people
Yeah.
with the work that you do.
Yeah. So your
So
reputation, because you do one quilt, you get more customers because people see your work and
right.
now do you advertise it all or is it just word of mouth?
I leave my cards in the local quilt shops, and it's word of mouth.
Amazing. And how
Yeah.
many quilts do you think you do like a month? Or
Um,
like you do how many charity like you do charity quilts and then you do the customer work. How much customer work do you think? Well, both. How much work do you think you're doing?
customer work, I kind of keep it to a minimum because I don't want it to feel so much like work.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'll do 2 or 3 a month
No, that's
for,
nice.
for customers. Other
Yeah.
than that, of course, I do probably more than that for charity.
That's
you
really
know,
nice.
for-
That's great though.
Yes, but for customers, I try to keep it on a minimum
Uh-huh.
number because I just don't want to take the hobby effect away from myself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt that way about the podcast because it's like I'm really enjoying being able to interview people like you and others and sort of, but then I also don't want it to become work. Like I don't want it to be
Yes.
overwhelming because then it's like, that's not fun. And one night I was really tired. This is funny, Edith. One time I was really tired and I've made this commitment that I'm going to sew just a little bit every night. And so, but I
Mhm.
was really tired and I was just irritated. I just thought, oh God, I have to go quilt now. And I was like, wait a
Right.
second, like, no, you get to go quilt now. Like, so don't be a jerk about that. I know, it's been a long day, but like that's the joyful part, not
That's
work,
exactly
you
it.
know?
And I don't know if, you know, for me, and quilted is such a relaxing pastime. Um, I can start quilting at the end of I could be very tired and start quilting and just kind of lose track of time.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
it and I'm just loving the creativity that it allows me to have. I've never thought of myself as being artistic or creative in dealing with, you know, the arts and color.